And just like that, we're into another brand new live stream right here on Longbox Punk. That's me. I'm Chris. I'm the punk, and I am joined on this episode from literally across the globe from where I'm at, which is super rad. Richard, thanks for hanging out with me, talking about Indigo Genesis with me on this episode. I'm stoked to get into it with you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I'm excited to be here as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's get right into it. Like what's your origin story? How did you get into comics? How did you start creating comics? Like where did all this come from for you?
For me personally, I think it's a little bit of a long story because when I was a very young child, my mom took me to the library and they had this comic book drawing, kind of like a free session for anyone who wanted to join. And I remember drawing Spider-Man. That's where it started with me. And then I started buying comics, on and off. But I want to say that after maybe when I was in, college, I kind of stopped reading comics altogether. And I was studying international business.
Oh, wow.
I graduated and I came over to China. I'm in China right now because I'm doing a little bit of international trading and stuff. But during COVID, it all stopped. And I actually got an offer for a job as a video game designer. And I was in charge of the narrative design, which they called me a narrative designer. Okay. And I got back into writing stories, and they're very similar. Actually, a game that I was working on is based on it's like a comic book theme kind of thing. It was like medieval times, but like in comic book form. And that kind of got me back into comics. And I talked to my partners, Jacob and Marcus, and we just decided to go with it. And it's something that for me, I mean, I'm a comic book fan, but so ever since I've been, traveling a lot, I kind of stopped reading them, and I'm very excited to be back.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you have done, God, you've done so many things. So that like international trading, how does that play into any of the storytelling? Like, does that influence like the tales that you want to tell?
So I'm kind of a, free soul. I want to call myself, I guess. I never wanted to be tied down to one place or one job. I just wanted to travel around, do my own thing. And Jacob, I've known him for probably around 10 years now. We talked about creating our own brand, but we just never knew what products or what services to offer. I just started designing products because design is kind of like my passion. I don't want to say it's my I never studied to be a designer, but I worked with factories. I designed, my own products, my own ideas. They're mainly prototypes like speakers and backpacks. And I started creating this idea around a brand called INDGO. And around that, when Marcus came into INDGO, that's when we fully went into comics, and we decided, maybe that might be the best way to start with something, with creating a story around the brand. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so like so being with the design as like a strength, is that what naturally led you with the like video game work too? Like, were you still doing designing, or were you just only focused on like the narrative storytelling piece of it?
I was also doing design, and that's part of how I got into this video game company, because I met a friend through another friend at a birthday party, and we were talking about how I was visiting factories and the whole process of what I was doing. I told them like, oh, I don't work with 3D modeling or anything. I'm not really that much of an expert in that area. But I told them like I would do sketches. I would go to the factory. I would show them. They would ask me, what size is this, and I had to really put a lot of time and effort to create these products. But they would do. They were very glad to work with me, and obviously there were some costs involved. Sure. But there's costs involved with everything. So we ended up in creating. We have prototypes for like speakers and for backpacks and for accessories, just like tech stuff.
Yeah.
And like a sci-fi theme. brand that we were trying to build. And so I used that story while I was telling him. He's like, "What? Well, during COVID, there was nothing going on. I was also telling him, I can't travel. I can't go back home. I can't even ship stuff across. Shipping was pretty much paused temporarily.
Yeah,
And why not? We're looking for designers over at this video game company. So that's how I got into that.
that's awesome. So like with the you mentioned the speakers and the backpacks, like how did any of the designs that you did with that end up in Indigo Genesis?
So Indigo is actually the brand that we've kind of been creating for the past 5 years. I want to say 5, 6 years, and we didn't have a strong idea. I was working with other projects, other people, clients who wanted to buy other things, and I just wanted to start my own thing. And when I linked up with Jacob, he was like, "Yeah, let's do something." He's on the U.S. side, I'm on the Asia side, and Indigo became something that was our passion. Like we're passionate about like sci-fi, next level technology. And every time we would talk, I would tell him, China's kind of ahead of the game, and as far as production, like
Yeah.
the stuff, the way that live works here is just so advanced. And I told him maybe we could use that to our advantage and create some products that, you know, um, that are not available yet, and we can bring them over to the US. So we started creating this brand called Indigo, and then from these products that we're creating, we realized like marketing is really hard. And it's not that it's difficult, but it's like if you have the money, then you're set. But
Yeah.
if you're like bootstrapping, the whole process, it's incredibly difficult. And then I don't remember exactly how I got this idea, but I was already working with video games design, and I told him, I'm developing like a serious skill with writing, and I love it. And I told him, we could do comic books where it also serves like marketing, like we can have a brand, and then the brand could be involved in the story. And that was just like that was a small idea. And then later on, as the story grew, we realized like, yeah, we have something here actually that people will like. I mean, I love the idea, and it's been like 2 years in the process, the whole comic book aspect of it. So we're really excited to get it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, so let's move into the campaign. Like you're in pre-launch currently. Do you have a like launch date that when you're going to be launching the campaign?
So we've been talking about June 30th as like the set date,
Okay.
and hopefully nothing will make us extend that. But that we're 90% sure we're ready for it. We're
Yeah.
planning literally every day. We're meeting, we're discussing different things. I think we're gonna be ready for it, and we're excited. I mean, it's our first time, so we're not sure if we're like completely ready, but
Sure.
I don't think you ever are the first time around.
No. No, you're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just launched my first campaign on the 4th with my collaborator who's in Oklahoma. So at least we're both like stateside, but leading up to our launch, like we were talking, 5, 6 times a day, like early morning before we both started work, like on our lunch break, we were texting back and forth, after work, late night as we were ruminating over ideas. And then I'm insomniac. So like 2 a.m, I'm working on the campaign page and I'm like, wait, did we talk about this? And then, starts the next day. So I totally get the like, at some point you just got to pull the trigger and like this,
Yeah.
we're as ready as we're going to be. So like, let's do the thing. And it's wild. Like, there's nothing else that I've ever done that feels the same as the lead up to and then the actual like launching of that and then seeing people jump on and fun and back it and all that stuff. Like it's crazy. So with this being the first flagship book that you're putting out, I saw on the Indigo website that this is like a series of like it's a graphic novel series. So like tell me about the book and like the story and let's get into that part of it.
Well, I don't know if this is one of our strengths or one of our weaknesses, but we have like an expansive imagination. I mean, like as soon as we start talking about one thing, it just leads to the craziest thing you could like. We could start with, hey, how about we make a comic book? And 20 minutes later, we're talking about, yeah, how can we get it into Netflix and stuff like that? And so we're kind of like, we need to put the brakes on, or at least slow down for a little bit. So I already have an idea. I've written down. I have at least, so we're doing it in volumes, but we call them parts. So
Okay.
this is just part one, but I've already written down three parts, and each part is three. We wanted to do them in issues actually, but we found out that Kickstarter probably works best if we just group them together. So instead of selling like 20-page issues, we have our part one, which is about 70 pages. So we'll
Okay.
have, hopefully we can have all of the three parts that I've already written out. Like we have a big plan, and everything is in motion. You know, we have everything to move forward for the next 5 years, but we haven't even done our first Kickstarter. So that's what makes, we're worried that we're thinking a little bit too far ahead.
Yeah.
But hopefully it happens. Hopefully it comes out, the way we want it to.
Yeah. And like as a backer, I always like seeing that the creative team aren't just doing like, well, here's a single floppy issue. There might be more. It's like, no. We've got a story. Like we know we've got a story where we know where we want to go with it. Like that type of world building and planning, like I'm super into. So knowing, like, yeah, we have 3 parts planned, like already,
Mm-hmm.
is like as a backer, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, so this is like the first part, and then it's going to go even further and even further after that. Like, awesome. I like, and it might just be where I'm at with my like comic reading life cycle or whatever, where I would much rather just get a complete story in hand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I trade weight at this point for any of the big 2 stories, and then I pick up the trade and I'm like, cool, I can read an entire story in one sitting, and I don't have to worry about like reading the first issue, waiting a month, reading the second issue, because guess what, like I'm reading other stuff in between. So
Right.
getting those chunks all at once, like as a reader, I love that. And I have such a like weird obsession with the like perfect bound, it like 60 to 80 page like complete stories. I love that format because you can bang it out in like an hour just sitting there reading it, and you get a whole story, and it feels substantial more than just like a floppy does. So it like everything you're saying, just letting you like, I'm in, man. You got me. But like
Yeah.
what's the story about? Because I saw that it was like part mystery, part like sci-fi epic, part cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Like
Part,
what's the story?
so basically we wanted to feature, because it was sci-fi. We were thinking this has to be in the future, and we were thinking like how far along in it. When you think about science fiction, it could be 100 years or 1,000 years or a
Yeah.
million years. You never know. But we wanted it to be like near future so that people could relate to it. I find out that there's times where you have stories that are too far into the future that people don't really relate to it. It's almost like it becomes fantasy, right, rather than science fiction.
Yeah.
So my idea is to set it in the near future. So it's set in the year 2064.
Okay.
There's a reason for that, but I don't want to spoil everything. And so that's about 40 years into the future. So we have a crew who are working on the moon. So there's like the new technology. They're harvesting helium-3, which is a real thing that is actually would be the perfect fuel for rather than using fossil fuels. But the only issue is that it's all on the moon, because on Earth,
Mm.
something with the atmosphere, it stops. It cannot be created on Earth. So I was like, it was a cool idea for me to just think, oh, you know what, why not make it a little bit into the future, where we already have like harvesting, people are living and working on the moon.
Yeah.
And then there's like an apocalyptic disaster waiting for them to happen, basically. And it's going to change everything. It's kind of like between apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, because the story is going to run into, it starts on Earth, but it's going to end up who knows where. And speaking of, how we were saying, like, we have so many ideas.
Yeah.
We obviously know that we can't do everything at once, but we've decided to include trading cards with this Kickstarter.
Cool. Yeah.
Because we want to create it into a game later on.
That's
And
awesome.
the way the story runs, it's like there's a lot of factions on Earth. Some of them human, some of them robot or AI, and some of them are not of this Earth, you could say. So all of
Okay.
these factions will play into the trading card, where you can kind of collect either you love one particular faction and you want to use it. We're planning to make it into a game, so I think that's also something that could pull people into the story more. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of ideas. We just don't want to throw everything out there all at once, and we want to have like a step-by-step process. But
Yeah.
that's how
That's
it started.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like the using or utilizing those two like different mediums of like
Mm,
the card almost deck building, like the tabletop type game, and comic books, like for the big nerdy completist fans like myself,
mm,
like, give me all the story, all like what else can I learn about it? If you're only into game playing and then you realize like, oh, this is based on, wait, there's graphic novels about this too. Like, what are those? And then suddenly you're reading those and it's like, oh, well, this just expands the world that we're already playing. And so like now we can take stuff from the book and maybe use that as background info, like, not knowing the premise of the game, but like I just see so many different potentials that could expand out for you, because then it gives you a
mm,
completely second market to then like sell your game to. And they're like, oh yeah, and
mhm,
by the way, like we also have these comics. And then same thing with the comic people, like, hey, you like comics, like what if you do you want to play a game too? Like, do you want to collect the cards? Cool. Do you want to use those cards and turn that into the game and play the game that we also developed? Awesome. Here's the get. Like, that's so freaking smart to tackle two different avenues. Was that just born out of a like, this would be really fun to do? Or was it more of like the business minded, like, no, let's tackle two completely different demographics and markets and try and merge them into one?
I think it's like I was saying before, it's like we just get all of these ideas, and we are trying to be smart about it. It's not about, it's about being realistic and knowing that you can't do everything at once. So
Yeah.
we did our research and we found out that a lot of comic book projects actually also do trading cards. So that was already something that was like, hey, like that's already something that we wanted to do, and people are doing it and people are liking it, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
So the story has been evolving. It wasn't like a straight line. Once
Yeah.
this trading card idea came in, I decided, we're gonna need more factions. So we're coming out with 3 factions for the first part, and then 3 more for part 2, and then 3 more for part 3.
Oh,
So
cool.
when we finish all 3 parts, we'll have 9 factions. Factions are basically groups within the games, within the story, that are going to either help each other or try to annihilate each other.
Yeah.
And we're working that into the actual game as well, where you can play with your friends, where you can be one faction, your friends another faction. You can either help each other, or you can destroy each other, or you can work against another player. So we just felt like trading cards is probably the next big step we can take, because I did mention we even have products that we have, like speakers, backpacks,
Yeah.
but we think it's like it doesn't make sense to come up with that all at once. So we're just gradually gonna bring it in, and the merchandise is amazing. I mean, amazing quality, and I'm already like wearing it everywhere. I take my backpack everywhere I go, and people always ask me like, "Oh, that's a cool backpack. Where'd you buy it?" I was like, I didn't buy it. I made it. Being in China, it's not as ridiculous as it sounds, but when I take it back to the US, everybody's like, "What do you mean you made it? Like that doesn't make sense."
Yeah.
But but that's where we're at right now. We're barely starting, but hopefully, hopefully we can get it out as soon as possible.
That's awesome. So how did you, cause you were the predominant writer of it, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
how did you, was it one of the other Indigo guys that did the artwork, or like how did the creative team come together for the book?
So Jacob and I were the ones who kind of started with the products, right? We were designing electronics, and we just had this idea. It wasn't like something that we haven't even brought to the market yet. It was, we were just playing around with our passion and our hobby. But
Yeah.
when Marcus came in, I want to say like 2 years ago, he's like the biggest comic book fan that I've ever met, and he actually brought me in. He showed me a lot of comics that I didn't know about, and a lot of artists. So none of us are really an artist. Like I like drawing as pastime. Like sometimes I'll draw, but I'm not confident enough to make something that I can sell yet.
Yeah.
I like painting, but obviously that's much different than a comic book. So we decided to look for an artist, which that took longer than we thought. It took about 3 months, I want to say. I don't know what the actual process, how long it actually takes, but it took us about 3 months. We found a guy in Argentina because we were looking for artists everywhere. Like
Yeah.
we found that South America has some of the most amazing artists. And
It
actually
really
there's
does.
predominantly from Brazil and Argentina. They have really amazing artists. We also found great artists from like Philippines, from Korea, like all over the place. But everybody has their own style, and we were set on one of our. Now he's a good friend of ours because we've been working on it for 2 years. So his name is Augustine. He's from Argentina, and he's an amazing artist. And there's so many great artists that don't have that exposure. He's just trying to be well known in the world. So this is kind of his first project as well. But his art is amazing, and it's exactly what we were looking for. So that's why we've decided to work with them. And we've been picking up many artists. So we have like, I think, want to say like four. We have
Okay.
one in the UK. We have a Mexican artist. They're all working on different aspects, but mainly our Augustine is like our main artist for the comic book.
That's awesome. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love the, like the main promo graphic on the Kickstarter pre-launch page. Like as soon as I saw it, I think it came up in like a, um just in like the Kickstarter discovery thing, because I've backed other like cyberpunk stuff, and so whatever the SEO algorithm popped out, it was like, oh, you might like this, and so it pops up that way, and I was like, that looks sick. Like I'm super into it. I've been on a huge cyberpunk kick recently of like, I went back and read all of the Battle Angel Alita. I've got Ghost in the Shell queued up next to get into, and then like I backed a novel that was based it like a cyberpunk feeling story there, and then I will forever love Akira. Like that anime is the one that broke everything for me into like, oh my gosh, these are incredible. And so like one thing after the other, and the further I get into it, the more I'm just like, man, the neon lights and like the broken machines and people still surviving in like a world that just is oppressing everything. Like I don't know why that's where my fandom is like, yeah, man, but like it is. And so I saw it, and after Jacob reached out, I was like, it's funny that you emailed me, because I actually like already have that like I already have it pre-saved on Kickstarter, because it's absolutely like everything about it's right up my alley. And then I was looking in prep for the show, like on the INDGO website, and just checking out like the different little blurbs of some of the characters and stuff. And I was like, man, everything that I see, even on the website, is like, this just keeps getting cooler and cooler and cooler. And like, I saw something about there's plot twists and there's unusual character types. So all of that to lead to like, what would you say were like influences as you were creating this story, this world, these characters?
that's actually something I wanted to bring up, but it's hard to describe it because the main influences that I feel, you know, we're actually having this issue when we're trying to describe our comic book in our Kickstarter page. It was like, what
Mm,
can we say? Because we saw some projects, they always say like, if you like this movie, or if you like this story or this
yeah,
manga, you'll love us. And then there's nothing that is similar to our project, but there's elements of a lot of sci-fi movies that I grew up with, like Terminator, being one of the series that really inspired me to do sci-fi.
yeah,
So it's inspired by Terminator. Let's say there's like, you know, artificial intelligence, and maybe it's evil, or maybe it's good, or maybe it's neutral. Um, but also Blade Runner, you know, Mad Max. Um, all of these, you know, it was hard to pin it down to like one specific movie, you know, because it didn't sound right. For example, if I said, "Oh, if you like The Matrix, you'll like our comic book," but at the same time, it's like we're it's not similar to The Matrix. It has elements of so many different, you know, movies that inspired me to do sci-fi.
yeah,
So it's we're not really like marketing professionals. You know, we're not exactly sure how to present it, and
yeah,
that's sometimes an issue with us. It's like, how do we even explain this whole universe that we're building, because it's expanded so fast
yeah,
that it's hard for us to like even have an intro for it. It's like, well, it's just this huge universe with, you know, all types of situations that could possibly happen in the near future. A lot of them are like dystopian and post apocalyptic, so obviously we hope they don't happen, but I think
right.
they're cool. I think they're cool to read and to watch. Obviously, all of these movies that I mentioned, there's always something, you know, crazy that's happening. Either it's like robots sick over the world or something like that. Like, obviously we don't want that happening, but it's
Yeah,
exciting to read or to watch these kind of movies, right?
yeah,
But yeah, it's mainly these type of science fiction movies from, you know, I want to say like even from the 80s, all the way up to even now. There's still like Terminator movies coming out. All these
yeah.
kind of sci-fi movies that are what inspired the story. And I feel like I have a lot of, I don't want to say knowledge, but I have a lot of experience. You know, like seeing what kind of stories work. But obviously, even within these series, for example, the Terminator, there's probably
Hmm.
movies that people love, fans that fans either loved or hated, and there's reasons for that. So I feel
Yeah,
like, okay, I kind of know what people like and what we should stay away from. So this all came into Indigo.
that's cool. I do think it's really I don't know, it's clever, it's smart, it's well approached of having your story take place in a specific time where it's like it's far enough in the future. Like in 40 years, I'll be pushing 80, which is weird. Um, I'll still be doing this show, just but like it's real enough, right? That it's like, oh no, that's not, far from the imagination. Whereas something like The Fifth Element, right, where
Mhm.
Bruce Willis is driving a flying car, and there's all this just insane world of high tech, crazy skyscrapers, and Chris Rock's character, like all of these just nonsensical things where it's like this almost doesn't even feel like science fiction. It feels more like you mentioned earlier, like this is just like high fantasy with like science and tech involved
Mhm.
in it. Because to me, like I grew up reading like sci-fi and horror stuff, right? So I was reading like the Goosebumps books and like Animorphs, where people turned into animals and stuff like that. And reading those books, it just like then I discovered like Isaac Asimov, and then my dad was an English teacher, so he had a bunch of like the best sci-fi things that he was teaching his classes that I was reading like for fun in fourth grade. I was like, oh, this is it was just different. And like The Giver, like everybody has to read The Giver, and turns out it's only book one of a trilogy. And you read that and it's like, oh well, that doesn't feel like it's super far away. So having things that are grounded and
Mhm.
also fantastic are like, it's a delicate balance. Like I know you talked about trying to take a deep breath and be like, we can't do everything all at once. Like, is that the same way when it came to creating the story of like, we want to do all of these things. Like, what do we keep? What do we put on the back burner for later in the story? Like, did you experience any of that?
Well, I also did a lot of research on my side, um, since I was mainly, tasked with the writing of the story. uh, I didn't want to come up with something that people right away said like, no, that's impossible, or something that took them out of the storytelling. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of research into it, and I could let you know why we picked the year, or why I picked the year 2064. Basically, in 40 years, it's very likely that we're gonna pass the technological singularity. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's
It's an
where
idea I've heard of. Yeah.
sort of technology is basically so advanced that it'll practically know everything, and we don't know if at that point whether we'll be able to trust artificial intelligence. But basically, in 40 years, it's basically everything's going to change. Humanity has been progressing for the past few thousand years, and we went through different eras. But
Yeah.
it's like once you reach technological singularity, it's like we don't know what's going to happen. So that's why we picked that, and it's a little bit grounded because it's in the near future. There are things that are happening now that are leading up to that, and we already see it all the time in the news, where they're speaking about well, now ChatGPT or all these OpenAI softwares, they can do this, they can do that, and it's just progressing so fast
Yeah.
that it's gonna be crazy. Like some people even think that something that's happening in the comic book, it's like too far in the future. They think, oh well, it's only 40 years from now. Like, how could we be harvesting, helium-3 from the moon? It's like, well, I honestly, like, people don't realize like how fast we're advancing.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of research into it. So I hopefully people can also learn a little bit about science and about physics, because we're also involving like a lot of, I don't want to give out too much information,
Sure.
but definitely, like, basically the earth is going to be practically destroyed. So I had to go through I was reading books on like extinctions, on aliens. I've been going to the library. Actually, I used to buy books, but I realized, if I don't know if it's the same back home, but I'm sure they probably do have like all the newest books in the library. It's just that people probably don't go there, and including myself. But I went to the local library here, and I realized, like, wow, they have everything. Like, I don't need to buy these books. And probably, people that see me in the library with these books, they probably think like, because all of the topics are so different, right? It's like, imagine I'm
Yeah.
walking with like 10 books, and it's like aliens, extinction, like, what is this guy planning,
Yeah.
But reading is part of it's fun for me. I love reading, writing, learning things, and incorporating it into all my stories. Like, that's hopefully I can make like a career out of it, and we can expand it as far as I have no idea how far it could go, but hopefully it's something we could do long term.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, like, I get stuck in the research because I
Hmm.
love reading and just learning and understanding how things work, which is part of why I wanted to start this show. Was like, how do comics get made? Well, let's talk to creators about how they make comics. And like, I know I've used it before, but like the Tony Stark thing where he takes the arc reactor or whatever, and he's like,
Yeah.
I need to, like, there's something wrong, and he blows it up, and he has all these 3D parts all around him, and he's like, I don't think we need this anymore. Like, that's how my brain works, is I have to be able to blow stuff up to understand it, to then cram
Hmm.
it back together and be like, oh, now I understand how this works. Like, I get it. And so, like, going to the library is absolutely something that more people need to be doing, because libraries are the best. But also because, like, there's a wealth of knowledge like right there. And speaking of the like 40 years ago, we didn't have, I'm using my phone as my camera, but so I can't hold it, but like, we didn't have things that came with us everywhere, that we literally had the knowledge of the entire world at our fingertips. And like we do now. And that's terrifying
Yeah.
because like you're absolutely right with the, I've looked at and as you were talking about the like technological singularity, it was like, oh yeah, I have heard of that, because we're rapidly like just white knuckling right towards it. Because if you look at how technology has advanced, it took this much time to get to the industrial revolution, it took this much time to get to the next mile marker, it took this much time to get to space, it took this much time to then have computers and then phones and then cell phones, and then suddenly it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller before it gets to the point where it's like it's self-aware. Right, like I read an article that said that there was some company that, or there was a country that was dumping
Mhm.
like billions into the development of a self-aware artificial intelligence. And I immediately like, I love how social media can be sometimes, because everybody was like, where's Sarah Connors? Like, what? We've seen this movie, like we know what happens. And so that's why I like science fiction, because suddenly we look back at the 80s sci-fi movies, which are just fun and campy, and you look at them like, oh, wasn't it cute what they thought we were going to have? And then you turn around and there's other stuff where it's like, oh no, they're creating the like Terminator bots, and like we're right here. How long until it's self-replicating and it can learn and adapt on its own and it doesn't even need humans anymore? And then
Yeah.
what happens? Like it's, I think for me, as terrifying as it is, and as much as like not knowing doesn't really feel great, the creative in me and my imagination goes, yeah, but because then like all of these stories and spin-offs and ideas can just come pouring out, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, so hang on, where are we now? Like how do we how do we prevent the Terminator from just annihilating humans? Like what can we be doing now to maybe make it better for us in the future? And it's not always great, and sometimes like we're just straight doomed, like there is no hope. So like in your stories, is there a specific message, like are you trying to give hope about the like after we hit that technological singularity, or like and if it gives away, like feel free just to tell me, like I'm not answering that. But like
um,
were you intentionally including like those moods in with the writing in the story?
of course. Well, without giving too much information,
Yeah.
I'm kind of using the comic book to give my thoughts on what would happen if, we reach that point. And usually I don't tell people this much, but I'll give you. It's not that much of a yeah, not that much of a spoiler. But in my opinion, I feel that technology is kind of neutral in every single aspect. So it's not necessarily evil, but it's not good either. It makes choices based on, let's say, facts. Like what, or probabilities. What is the
Yeah.
best option at this point? And hopefully, the thing that I don't know is whether is AI going to develop like a ethical, like morality, basically. Are they going to start thinking, well, we obviously can't kill all these people because that's not right. So knowing right from wrong, that's where I'm unsure about. But I feel
Yeah.
that technology is not evil. Like I don't think that technology can even be, can evolve to be evil. In my opinion, I think it would always be neutral. So that's something that I've incorporated into the story. And I hope
That's
that makes
cool.
sense without me going too far into it.
Yeah, yeah, it does, because like technology can't have a moral compass. Like
Mhm.
there is no, you can study good and evil, but even that is subjective based on
Mhm.
whoever is deciding what's good and what's evil, because that person has their own biases. And like the further you get into it, the more you're like, well, there is no answer. So, okay. And then you're bordering it, like pushing into philosophical conversations to that
Yeah.
point of like, well, what even is time? Right. Or whatever. And so, like, it started, as a joke for me of like, time's just a construct, man. And then the more that like I said it, the more I was like, yeah, but a lot of things are just like, what is money? Right. Like, it's like an agreement between us as humans of what the value of a piece of paper is. And if it looks different, it has a different value. Like, it's just an agreed upon thing. And that's how time is. And so to get back to technology, because
Yeah.
that will get me down a really weird soapbox that I don't know that I even have enough well-formed thoughts to stand on yet. But like, technology is a tool, right? Like, I have talked about social media like that because it used to be my job to do social media and like online marketing for a radio station and for concerts and all this stuff. But like, it's a tool, and so it'll give you what you put into it. So if you only ever get onto it to be a knuckle dragging troll, you're only ever going to get hate from social media. That's not
Mhm.
social media's fault, it's what you're putting into it, and vice versa. Like, I try to be very intentionally positive on all of my social media channels, just because like it can be a very negative place because people feel safe behind their keyboards and screens. And so instead of like spreading hate and negative nonsense, like, let's just be happy. Like, we're alive right now and doing really awesome stuff. So like, let's just celebrate that. And so once that perspective shifted for me of like, well, social media is just a tool. Like, I don't have, it doesn't define me, just like my job doesn't define me. And so
Mhm.
like, it's not social media, right? That's the problem. It's the people that are using social media to be a problem, that then
Right.
suddenly it becomes like, oh, it's just easier to say that social media is the problem. Nah, I disagree, because I have a great experience on social media because I interact with incredible people and I'm meeting all sorts of like super awesome creators and having conversations and like really healthy discourse on social media. And I'm like, no one talks about this because it's
Mhm.
more clickbaitable if you're just negative all the time. And I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
But like, I think what you were saying with like the technology can't know good or evil. Like, I agree,
Mhm.
we can only teach it and train it what we have. And like, if the person that's creating the AI bot is a hateful person, then the bot that they create is going to be a hateful bot. Like, there, you can't. It's just going to accept that, and there's an even bigger philosophical topic there. That's waiting to be poked that I don't want to poke because I'm terrified to poke it. But like,
Mhm.
with the overarching story and like moving from Earth and then onto the moon, and like, how do you keep track of all of the world building stuff, and also with the plan to add in more of the groups of different, like the tribes and stuff, like how do you keep track of all that stuff as you're creating this like sci-fi epic universe?
I take a lot of notes. I don't know if that's it's not
Perfect.
a it's not like a super secret, but I mean that's what I do. I write down I have documents, now that you can save it on like Google Drive and stuff. I'll create documents about the world, what's the world like, and I'll have all this information in there. And in case I forget something, I always go back and read it again. I have documents on everything, like the factions, like each faction has their own characteristics down even to like what they eat. Maybe one group
Mm.
set of groups they eat they eat hamburgers and normal stuff, and maybe another one, they're not technically human. So what do they eat? So
Yeah.
spoiler alert if I go too deep into that, but yeah, I mean, sorry for not revealing enough, but obviously, like, you don't
No,
want to
that's
know
great.
too much. You want
Yeah.
that mystery, so that you can fully enjoy the story. But I just basically take notes of everything. Like, I'm literally on my phone everywhere I go. Obviously, everybody has their phone, but
Yeah.
I write down notes on there, like I'm literally as I'm walking to wherever I'm going, and then I'll get home and I'll compile it back. Because it becomes messy. It's not like a set thing, where it's like I'll have ideas about like, oh, the world, and then the next idea is like about something about a product or something that like, oh, this would be a good product to do, and then I have all these crazy ideas, and then I have to like organize it at least into like some form that I can remember later on,
Yeah.
or I can look back into. But it's nothing like crazy. I don't know what other creators do, to be honest, but that's just what I do. I read, take notes, and then I put it into the story directly if it fits.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, there's no right way to do
Yeah.
anything. Like, there's just the way that works for you. I find that my problem is I'll take a ton of notes, but then I forget where I put certain notes. And so
Yeah.
then when I'm like, "Ooh, what was that thing?" I can't find it. And then I spend so much time hyperfixating on trying to find the thing that by the time
Mhm.
that I do, I'm so fed up because it took me so long to find it that I'm just like, I'm done. I'll just go back to reading and read this comic. And then I rage read a comic book because I get fed up with myself because I can't find it. So uh, I'm always trying to enhance my note taking process because I have like 4 note apps, which is stupid. Like there's no reason for me to have that many. And that's probably my problem is I just don't organize everything.
Well, I suggest that you write down notes as you. I mean, exactly at that time that you have that thought, you write it down, and then later on that night you can put it into some more organized format.
Mm,
I'll give you a little tip. I don't remember exactly. It's very early here in China. It's like I woke up at like 6 in the morning. And maybe that's not early for you. That's just early for me.
no, that's
I'm a
early for me. Yeah.
I'm a night owl, but so like I forget things in the morning, or my brain isn't functioning as well. But there's a scientist. I don't know if it was Thomas Bell, who had this. It might not be him. It might be someone else. But basically, the idea is he would always carry around like a steel ball in his hand, and then
Hmm.
he would um he would just have it always in his hand. And if he ever, I think it might be the same scientist again. Sorry if I don't get the facts correctly, but there's a scientist that didn't sleep like full 8 hours. He would just sleep like 2 hours, and that's how he lived his whole life. He would just sleep 2 hours, and then if he got tired, he'd just sleep 2 hours. It didn't matter if it was daytime or nighttime. And it might be the same. This might be the same guy. So he would have a steel ball, and if he ever nodded off, he would drop the instant like in his hand. When you have it in your hand, it just falls asleep. It will just fall out of his hand, and then it will create a loud thump right on the ground,
Yeah.
and so that it would wake him up. And the idea behind that is that your best ideas are always like right when you're about to fall asleep, or right after you wake up.
Yeah.
So I use that as well. Like but the thing, so this was my segue, because you say like sometimes you forget. Sometimes I don't remember a dream I just had 10 seconds ago. So that's why it's so important for me to write things down, because I'm probably more forgetful than most people, which is crazy, because our universe is huge. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even explain how big it is, because it makes it so difficult for me to even try to introduce the comic book itself, because there's just so much going on. Hopefully I'll get better with that. This is actually my first interview that I've ever
Awesome.
done. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
But definitely my first time trying to explain it, but hopefully I'll get better at that. Yeah.
Listen, that's one of those things that like when you see comics, you're like, I want to do that. And then you talk to people and they're like, just make the thing. They don't also say, and learn how to pitch the thing and sell the thing and market the thing and plan for the
Yeah.
thing. And so, like, those are all additional skills that like come over time. Not everybody is ready to, be able to boil down this story that they've been working and researching for 2+ years into a succinct little like, oh yeah, here's my thing. Boom, there you go. Like, how did what? That takes time to develop. So, as long as you're working on it or whatever, like, cool, great.
Yeah.
And if you're not,
By the
also totally fine.
by the way, I wasn't saying that you should. My tip wasn't that you should carry around a steel ball with you everywhere you go, because people might find that weird. But Just letting you
I
know that
already ordered it. I
okay.
already ordered it on Amazon. It's gonna be here in 2 hours. So
But definitely writing down things. That was my main point. You make
yeah.
sure you write things down, especially if it's getting late or it's too early. That's for me. That's my weakness. It's like 10 seconds later, I'm like, what did I just think about? It happens to me. I hope it's not like it's not gonna be it's some people say those are signs of like dementia, not dementia, but like when you start forgetting things as you get older. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I should work on keeping a healthy brain. But I think it just has to do with I'm always like I have like ADHD, so like ideas just pop in and out of my head all the time. There's like a black hole somewhere in there where it's like once it goes in there, it's like it's gone. So I gotta write things down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. I tell my wife because I forget stuff all the time. But then I remember like every lyric from, a specific CD from like 2002 with no
Yeah,
issues.
yeah.
But like I tell her, I my brain is like a computer, and it has a finite memory space. And once
Mhm.
that's full, it can't hold anything else. And every once in a while, I just have to do a memory dump and like delete a bunch of files in the brain. And so, like, if I don't need it for everyday use, it gets deleted. And so she'll be like, "What do you mean you don't remember that? Like, we just talked about it like 2 nights ago." I'm like, "Babe, I don't, you're handling it, so I don't need to think about it." So I
Mhm.
deleted it. Sorry. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
and I
helpful,
think
but
yeah.
it's real.
Yeah, I've actually spent a lot of research on like human evolution because obviously that's also going to be a thing later on. And I think I've read somewhere that's like if for us, for like humans, as we evolved, it's like only things that are useful for survival are things that stick with us. So that's why a lot of ideas, they're great ideas, but maybe our brain's like, how is that useful for to your survival? And it's just like throws it away.
Yeah.
So or maybe you can try to remember it in a way that it's like I have to remember this or else this is my life depends on it, and maybe you'll remember it. But
Yeah. There's consequences if you forget this. Remember it.
yeah,
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 I guess I need to remember lyrics for my life because I literally like I just did this 2 nights ago. I was driving home from my I don't even remember where the hell I was coming from. I was driving home from somewhere and I was like, you know what I haven't listened to? I haven't listened to the Presidents of the United States of America in a while. Like the song Peaches. I was
yeah.
like, I haven't listened to that album in probably 10 years. And so I just pulled it up on Spotify, hit play from the start because I know I was like, oh, they have like at least 3 songs on there that I like. Dude,
Mhm.
every single song that came on my drive home, I remembered almost all of the lyrics. And I was like, oh, I love this song. Oh, I love this song. No, this song is great. Oh, everybody loves Peaches. I love this. Like every single one that came on, I remembered at least half of the lyrics, at least like the melodies and the moments of like the beat dropping or
Mhm.
whatever. And I was like, why do I remember I haven't listened to this album
Yeah.
in over a decade. And here I am like singing every word on my drive home, and the words I just yeah, Peaches, yeah. And it just like whatever, man. That's how my brain works. So it's totally fine.
That's
But
your core memory part,
yeah, like it formative years, right? Like I was listening to
Yeah.
that in junior high
Mhm.
and with my sister, and like she's the one that introduced me to him, and I had the cassette tape, and I don't know what happened to all of my cassette tapes, but I had that on cassette. That's how old it was. But it was good stuff. But like speaking of music, so like being
Mhm.
in a completely different country, like
Mhm.
what type of music do you like? Do you still find that you're drawn to like bands or music that you grew up with, or like have you discovered a completely new music in China where you're at?
Well, I have how can I say this? Like I have my opinions on music, and um maybe some people might not agree with me, but I feel like the golden years of music were in the 90s to like
Okay.
early thousands. Yeah, that's just because I was very into like rock alternative, and I just felt like, oh, where's that good old rock music that I used to listen to, back in middle school.
Yeah.
And I always find myself going back to what I liked. And I have like guitars and my drum set in the background.
Yeah.
And those are kind of the music that I just always fall back on, if I always want to listen to something. But I'm also very experimental. Like I actually don't like only rock. I like probably every genre. Uh, but in China, as you were saying, music here is like a little bit. Uh, I don't want to use any. I don't want to say it's strange or anything, but it's very different. It's very different.
Okay.
And they do have some good music. I mean, if you really want me to give you some examples, I live
I would
near.
love that.
I live near Hong Kong,
Okay.
and there's this amazing rock band back in I think the 80s. So they're called Beyond, and I have a Chinese football team that I used to play with, and we would always play that music. Like it's like what can I relate it to? Maybe it's like well, back in the 80s, there's like a predominant rock genre, I think. And
Yeah.
if you think 80s rock, think of it but in Cantonese. So
That's
this
awesome.
band was yeah, and they're actually legendary. Like I was like, wow, like they are amazing musicians. They had like their tragic, they had to stop the music tragically, but the music they did make was just epic. Just like, I mean, if you look into it, you'll see what I'm talking about. But they're
Okay.
called Beyond, yeah. And I listen to them sometimes. They're good rock music, and even if I don't understand it.
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole playlist that I used to have, but whoever the user was must have deleted it or their profile or something. But uh, it was called Big in Japan, and it was like a bunch of Japanese like rock alternative. There were some ska bands on there, like Japanese punk. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
I have no idea anything of what they're saying, but I love how
Mhm.
this sounds. And so I would listen to it like when I used to work like video IT networking stuff.
Mhm.
And so I was like troubleshooting some things and like had that playing in my headset because I enjoyed it and the lyrics didn't get in the way of distracting me. And so it's the perfect thing to listen to. And I was like, okay, I got to remember like where the red chord goes. Do I cut the blue chord? And it was the perfect thing for me to listen to at the time because I listen to lyrics and I get
Mhm.
stuck on the lyrics. And then because I remember they're all in my Rolodex. And so like I remember them all. And if I hear lyrics that I know, I'm like, oh, I know this song. And then I'll start singing that. And I'm like, wait, what the hell am I doing with the red chord? Like, where's the green one? And with that playlist, I just was like, this is really cool. Like I'm into it. I don't whatever. And so yeah, I'm the same with like I will listen to a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
And I also have my like go-tos of like it doesn't matter how I feel, I'm gonna put on Rancid and I'm gonna be happy. I'm gonna put on Blink 182 and I'm gonna be happy. Like it doesn't matter what mood I'm in or whatever, like those are my steady go-tos forever. So like so you've got Beyond, like what are some other bands? Because like I'm curious.
Um, in China, just the music is very it's either very romantic or it's very like techno. So you just
Okay.
have those two. That's why there's not a lot of in my the music that I like to listen to. There's not a lot of that here.
Yeah.
Um, Beyond is an exception. They're like they're a classic band, and people play them everywhere. Like you'll just be walking to the street, you'll be hearing Beyond, and it's crazy because like back home, I wouldn't think of like like older couple or like your grandma, for example, not your grandma, but like people's grandma listening to Metallica, for example, Metallica
Yeah.
or Pantera or these kind of like heavy metal music. But here it's like you'll see a grandma or grandparents, listen to Beyond or even like their grandchildren. So it's like I feel like they don't see genre. They're just like, this is music and it sounds
Yeah.
cool. So everybody kind of listens to Beyond. The other music that everybody listens to here is not Chinese. I would say like they like Thai music here.
Okay.
Korean, K-pop is huge.
Yeah.
If that's your thing, you know. But it depends
It's
on
not yours.
yeah. Uh, well, I did like that Bruno Mars. I forgot the song. Bruno Mars made a song with one of the Korean artists. It was like, okay, it's catchy. It's catchy. They were playing it
Yeah.
everywhere. I had no choice. But I prefer something like alternative rock or something more from my time maybe. Not that I
Yeah.
don't like experimenting, but it's like I don't know. I just grew up with alternative rock, and it's something that I haven't like I haven't heard any really new alternative music. I don't want to say good alternative music, but just like that I can remember that it's like back in my times. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Unless you have something you could recommend me. I could listen. I could start listening to.
well, I mean, like they say that your musical tastes are basically locked in by the time you hit
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
And I try to rebel against anybody telling me how I work. And so
Hmm.
I try to find new bands, and some stick and I find new bands. But a lot of them I'm like, I don't like this. This reminds me of this other band, but the other band did it better. So I'm going to go back and listen to them. Like
Hmm.
the last like big resurgence that I had of finding new music was when I was doing college radio, which was shit 18 years ago almost. And so it's like I mean, I listen to new stuff because my daughter is now 18, and but she listens to
Yeah.
country, and I'm like, I don't like country. If I'm in a mood, I can put on bluegrass and get
Hmm.
down with some bluegrass or some murder folk, um,
Hmm.
like Amigo the Devil or Harley Poe. Like those are some of the newer bands.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been trying to find, like, as I do more research and stuff on my own family's heritage and where we came from, and like learning more about the indigenous tribes that like my great great grandmother was like born and raised in. I'm like,
Hmm.
well, is there indigenous music out there that's like badass? And so I found a couple bands like that. One of them that I just keep coming back to is 1876.
Hmm.
Um, they're the biggest one that like I continue to keep coming back to their music because it's so freaking good. But yeah, like it is hard to find new stuff and consistently stay with new stuff
Hmm.
because you know and you have that emotional connection with the older music that you were listening to, that when you listen to something new it could be the best damn thing there is, but if it
Hmm.
doesn't have the emotional connection that you had with
Right.
the old stuff, you're not going to jive with it because you're like,
Hmm.
I liked that better, like, eh. So, but yeah, I mean, especially with like new metal acts, specifically, like a lot of, and I feel like metal is starting to just become this weird. I would love to see a brand new like 80s hair metal thrash band. Like I would
Hmm.
love that, or like a glam rock band, like give me
Hmm.
dudes with like the teased hair and just like a leather vest and, like jamming on like the diamond guitar. Give me that. You know what I mean? Like I would love that. It just no one's doing that anymore.
You
And so
actually get you actually gave me an idea. I'm thinking, why not put this heavy metal band in the future with playing like these kind of like crazy new sci-fi instruments.
yeah,
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
You
fully
might be
lean
saying that.
into it. I'm just saying,
I'm gonna
man, like take it
no,
and run, my friend. Just take it and run.
I'll definitely give you credit if that gets added to the comic book.
Perfect.
I wish Marcus was my other partner. He was on this podcast because he loves punk music, and I feel like you guys could really connect with that and on that in that side that aspect as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and
But
like that's where I'm like, everybody has like different strokes for different folks. Sometimes when I'm writing, like I'll listen to just like synth wave stuff, and I'll get lost in that. And then I found like a metal synth wave where it's like the
mhm,
heavy, chunky guitar and drums, but also like this smooth, creamy synthesizer stuff. It like laid in with it instead of lyrics, and like that's my jam. I love that stuff. And I'm like, if you had told me, 15 years ago, like, hey, you're going to get into this type of music, I'd be like, why? And now I'm like, oh, this is really freaking good though. Cause sometimes I just need to turn off it hits, I don't know, it hits some certain wave in my brain that's like, oh, I can distract myself from trying to create its own music, and because I'm listening to music, and then my brain can work on other things. And that's usually when I'm writing or creating something, is I just need to have something playing in the background, because I was raised with, there's always music playing in my house. And so like I'm comfortable in the silence, and sometimes I just need that because I get overstimulated.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, like even when I work from home. Even when I'm working
Mm-hmm.
from home, I'm playing Spotify at least 6 of the 8 hours a day, of just like, that's not it today. Like, what else? What else can I play or listen to or whatever? And sometimes it's completely weird. Like, I was on a bluegrass kick and I listened to 8 hours of bluegrass, and I went back to like the 50s and 60s of like old country, and then all the way forward into the now. And it was just like, whatever. And that was the vibe for that day. And then, other days like today, I'm just like, I just want to listen to two-tone ska all day, specifically like from the UK. And so
Yeah.
all day today, that's all I listened to. And it was perfect all day for me. So, but anyway, so
Yeah.
let's get back to I had, there it is. So the characters that you have created to live in this comic book, like,
Mm-hmm.
are like, where do you find that you are meeting these characters per se? And then like, how do you know what characters the ones that are going to stick with you enough to like, what, like, that's the voice of my main character, that's someone that's going to be influential in my story? Like, how do you know? Because I'm sure with all the ideas and all of the things that you've got and all the world building and all that imagination creation piece, like, how do you know when you found the thing or the idea or the character to be like, yep, that's the one I need to dig deeper on?
Oh well, um, I started with the idea that, what if we could gather a group of, these characters that are coming from all parts of the world, and they just have some special something that they were all recruited by this company called Indigo, which is like in the future. And this company's kind of like, kind of like a SpaceX or something like that, where you think like they're trying to, evolve humanity in the right direction, let's say, not the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And but I was thinking, what kind of characters could we put together that you wouldn't normally see together? So we have someone from like the Midwest, and we have like a Russian model type looking character. We also have like a Japanese like samurai looking character, and then we have like the older scientist who knows everything, and he's actually over 100 years old because it's the future, and he's a scientist, so he knows how to prolong his life. So we've got these random characters, but in the end, they're obviously going to have a lot of things that they relate. Maybe not like physically or culturally, but in their morals and like the way they think about life. They're going to have a lot of similarities, and they're going to find, they have a lot in common. They're kind of like a family. Um, that's also part of the story. It goes into the part of the main story, but without
Okay.
saying too much about that. But that's basically what the idea of the characters are. Obviously, like I don't want it to look very random. It might look random in the beginning, but that's kind of the part of the storytelling, is that like you start knowing more about the characters, and then you realize like, oh, I can see why they're friends.
Yeah.
That's the main direction of my character building process.
That's cool. Yeah. And so like, when you're building all of it, do you
Mhm.
find like, you go, oh, I'm just gonna like focus on getting all these characters, and then, well, what are they gonna have to go like, when you're writing and stuff, like, how do you write? Do you focus on different aspects of the story, like characters, like the worlds, like the overarching story, like, or do you just kind of start writing and see where it takes you?
Um, I would say that I start writing ideas and I don't make it into a story. It's just like, okay, it's, what would the world be like in 2064? And
Yeah.
then I have all of these ideas. And then, okay, what kind of characters, will people like? Well, samurai is always cool, in my opinion. Someone with
Always.
the sword fighting, this Japanese expert. I'm personally, I'm also a fan of these type of like mangas and stuff with
Yeah.
swords. So I know it's the future, and why do people have swords still? But that I was like, no, we have to have these, maybe like cybernetic swords. You can't do away with the swords, but
Yeah.
um, I compile everything together, and then I don't like the idea of me running, like having a story that doesn't end, which is kind of like what we have, but like without a
Mm.
purpose, without a direction.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, what's the direction? So I actually had the direction of the story before I had the story laid out. And then once I have like the steps of what I want the story to go to, then I start filling in with, okay, characters and people and conversations. And so that's just my personal opinion. I mean, I just don't want to create something where I end up being like, where's this going?
Yeah.
That's my nightmare, I guess I would say. So I definitely have a planned, step by step of where I want to go first. You have to
Yeah.
have a roadmap, and maybe not everybody's like that. Maybe there's some amazing stories that started, from one thing that led to another, and who knows. But I personally find that as a nightmare if I'm like, okay, I don't know where to go anymore.
Yeah.
Or maybe I have too many options. I'm like, we could go here, we could go there. But no, if you have like a plan, if you know what you want to tell in your story before you have the story, I find that it helps me to create a better story, because that way I know the ending, I know the middle, I know everything, and I just got to fill it in with conversations that, tell people like the full story. It's like a story is a compilation of many short little situations and other stories, stuff that happens to the characters that, change them, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, dude,
yeah,
that's those are the end of my notes, but I have two more things for you. The first one
yeah,
is super simple.
okay,
I'm going to take a screenshot and then use that
sure,
as the YouTube thumbnail so we can
sure,
pose however you want to.
sure.
Get me a shortcut here. All right, let's do three, two,
Just
one. Cool. And then the other is the one that I warned you, gave you a heads up about before we went live.
yeah, yeah.
um where like I love doing this show because I talk to people that are literally all over the globe, and
Hmm.
also have very different backgrounds and experiences that all lead them into making comics, which is just the
Hmm.
coolest freaking thing there is. So I love hearing from creators in their voice that, if there's a message or anything you want people to hear this directly from you, it could be a sales pitch of like, hey, sign up for the pre-launch page, which is linked in the description below. Or it
Hmm.
could be something like why I need to listen to Beyond 24/7. The content doesn't matter. It's just like, I want you to be able to share anything that you've got in your brain. So the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Well, if I can talk about the project, I
Yeah.
just want to let everyone know. We talked about, this being like a brand, and we were trying to create products and stuff. But I want to let the people know that the comic book is not just like a marketing thing. It's like, no, like I put a lot into the story. It's they're related because it's like sci-fi, and I hopefully, like, I want to have merchandise is like that is cool, that are people are like, I love the comic book, I wish I could have, this jetpack. And like, maybe we don't make the jetpack, but our backpack might look like a jetpack, and we
Yeah.
don't want it, so we don't want to look like we're selling stuff. More like, you like the comic book, well, we have like merchandise. Like, I like like my house is full of collectibles. I have like all these Funko Pops. I actually visited like their factory and everything. Like, I know
Oh,
everything
cool.
about Funko. Yeah. I have a lot of video games. I just collect a lot of stuff, and that kind of segue into like, oh, I wish our universe could expand to like I was saying earlier, like animation, or like having action figures and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
we're taking it slow, but I just want to let everyone know that our comic book, our stories is just, it's a universe of its own. It's huge. I don't know if that's I could give another message out. I don't know
It's up to
if
you,
that's
man.
okay. If that works for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
And being that I'm in China, um, I always try to spread messages of peace. I find like sometimes there's a lot of stories going on in the news, like just because I'm in China. I'm not just talking about China in general, but it's like, man, like when you travel, you meet amazing people all over the world. People are so kind and so nice. You wouldn't imagine. So I would like people to have like this open mind about, like people aren't as bad as, they say they are, or sometimes, don't relate like the government with the people. It's also like people don't agree a lot of the times, what's happening in the world. And I'm not trying to get political. I'm just saying like, regardless of what's going on in the world, keep an open mind. Just keep a positive mind, let's say. And people are kind everywhere. Like for any American, or it doesn't matter if you're from the US, but if you ever visit China, don't be scared and be like, oh, I might get kidnapped or something. I don't know what ideas people have, but it's like, no, like you'll get here and you'll just be on your phone and looking around, and people will see that you need help. They'll come up to you, and with their broken English, they'll be like, oh, may I help you, sir? It's like, you'd be amazed. So just keep an open mind. I don't know if it's something that that is talked about on your podcast, but I like spreading peace and friendship and keeping an open mind. Like literally traveling, it really lets you see different perspectives, and you learn a lot. And a lot of my stories, like for example, Indigo Genesis, has a lot of international characters, and I haven't made them according to what I think people are. I've made them according to how I've interacted with people from those countries, and I realized like I've learned a lot about like Russian culture, Japanese culture, Chinese cultures, obviously, but I've incorporated that into the characters. It's not my opinion of what they are like, but it's more about like what I've learned from them that I've tried to incorporate into the characters in the story.
That's
So
awesome.
that's basically it.
No, that's dude, that's great. It's almost like I gave you that note beforehand, which I didn't do. That's totally you.
No, no,
But
no,
like
no.
yeah, the like the positivity, the peace, the open-mindedness, like get to know people in a
Mm-hmm.
world that like says that you have to judge someone else based on how they look, where they live, how they
Mm-hmm.
talk, how they sound, whatever. Like it's the most punk thing you can do to just be nice to people. Like just,
Yeah,
just talk
yeah.
to people. Like I was at a baseball game today and I was
Mm-hmm.
sitting behind a bunch of dudes from the Netherlands that
Mm-hmm.
just love American baseball. And so they made a whole tour to go. They were doing 10 baseball games in a 2-week time frame, all at different stadiums. And so like they were here today, they're going 6 hours north tomorrow, they're
Mm-hmm.
going 8 hours east from there on Tuesday. And like it was just cool to talk to them about, like, in between innings or whatever, of just like what their lives are like and why they do this. And it was just like, man, you're doing some really cool stuff. Like you're a bunch of friends, you're a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
bros that are just like, we love this sport. Let's go see as many as we can. And he was like, we did this 2 years ago and then we did it this year. And we're like, we plan to do the West Coast of the States in another 2 years. And then we will have done East Coast, Midwest, West Coast. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
God, that's so freaking cool. Like that's such an awesome thing. And it's just because we just started talking to him, and
Mm-hmm.
like you just got to be nice to people. So yeah, I love the message, I love the stuff, and I'm not going to try and improve on it because I can't. We'll call it an episode, man. I
Yeah,
had a
yeah, sure,
blast talking to you. Hang out after I'll end the stream, then I got logistics for you.
sure.
But for everybody else, business side of things, go to the description below, save the campaign so that when they launch, hopefully at the end of June, you can get notified and be right in on day one, give them a super strong launch. I'm excited about the story. Like, I love everything that you're saying. I'm super in on it. So I appreciate you hanging out with me, Richard. Like, this was such a cool conversation. Just hearing your perspectives and how you process. I never would have known that this was your first podcast appearance. by the way. So
Thank you.
you're doing great, man. This was
Thank you.
a whole lot of fun. I literally looked down. I was like, "Oh shit, we've already been talking for like over an hour." Okay,
Yeah.
you probably have life to live today. And whereas I'm like,
Okay.
I'm gonna go eat dinner and go to bed. It's wild, dude. It's so wild that we're talking across the world. Like, what a time to be alive. That's science fiction. Like, this didn't exist 40 years ago, and I'm glad that it exists now in 2025. I'm stoked to see your comic book come to life and see it in people's hands, including my own. So just keep plugging away, man. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you
Making.
so much. Thank you so much.
I'm stoked. So thank you for joining us, for watching live, interacting in the comments. If you're listening to it in the future or watching it in the future, go do sci-fi things for your future self and travel back in time and tell yourself to watch this live and interact with us. So if that's you, time traveler, thank you for tuning in. That's going to be it for us. So good, do what's good for you, punks, and read some indie comics, because we are out of here.